Well, there comes a time when you realize that you should have bought that lathe and that milling machine and learned how to use them all those years ago. Or you come to the realization that you shouldn't take on projects that are a little too difficult for you to finish. Well, welcome back to Canacare. This is part 2 of my efforts to revive this Gem-style air rifle, which dates to probably somewhere between 1900 and 1910, perhaps. It is a Friedrich Langenhan style Gem, made in Germany. Has a smoothbore 177 caliber barrel. So it's not technically a rifle, it is an air gun. As you saw in probably the first video, this is, I say, quite an old gun. I stripped all the rust back off it, re-blued it, learned how to nickel plate, so that looks a lot prettier, and it does look a lot prettier, and I was all ready to shoot it when I discovered that it just is bound up a bit. When I put all the parts together, which all seem to work just fine on their own, it just stops right here. It's binding on the piston. It won't push the piston back down against the spring. And I've come to the conclusion that it's the cocking block that attaches to the cocking arm right here, that it's somehow twisting in its channel and it's just binding up against the piston. At least that's what I think it is. There's always quite a possibility that I'm wrong on that, and we'll find out as we go. But the only solution that I can see to work my way forward on this, because I said I've had this all apart, polished everything to see if I could free it up, and nope, it just still just locks up right at that very point there. So what I next need to do is pull it all apart, get that part out, and see if I can make a new one without benefit of a milling machine or anything fancy. So I've done things like this before. This won't be easy, but hopefully we can see this thing cock and shoot once again after all these years. So let's go along for the ride. So this is what I'm calling the cocking piece. This is the original part, and as you can see, it's pretty badly shaped. I don't know how they made it. Maybe just bashed a piece of soft metal into a mold and let it cool. But anyway, this doesn't work. It's obviously crooked. It's obviously not going to work. So have to make a new one from scratch. Okay, so I have to recreate this out of steel. Got a couple blocks of steel around here somewhere. Might be able to fit it inside that. Actually, it looks like I can. I've got another chunk here that was purchased for the project, but now I have to come out of that way. That's going to be a lot more cutting, so this might be just quicker. This is the same stuff that I used for the trigger guard for my tail rifle, actually. So, okay, so I'm going to have to figure out what this is supposed to actually look like, given that it's so brutally crooked. So, yeah, I just have to make a drawing of figure out the dimensions that I'm going to need, and then cut away everything that I don't need. Yes, I could draw this on my computer screen, but actually be probably quicker doing it this way. I just have a scaling ruler and my calipers. So overall length on this little beastie is 26.85 millimeters. Well, I've roughly drawn out the outline of my part on my steel block, and I put a 3mm hole right through it where the caulking linkage will eventually go. A slot will have to be drilled up, filed up through the block when I'm all done sizing it. And it's going to be a little tricky, but hopefully we'll get there. It doesn't help that I mapped it out, figured out how I wanted to do all this little procedure, and still drew it on the block upside down. I had planned on doing all the cutting and everything with this still attached, and then make this final cut at the end, but yeah, it's not going to work. Well, no, it's not going to work that way, because if I had done it the way around, I could do all the sizing and then slide it, test fit it by sliding it up inside the receiver tube, but since I've done it upside down, I won't be doing that. Anyway, I'll get it sorted out. Well, after a lot of hand filing and wearing away, literally wearing away the skin on my fingers, I have my part close to its final dimensions. It's not quite there yet, but the slot is cut. So this goes that way to push the piston back. That will slide along here and push the piston back in the piston tube. There is no leather seal on these guns or anything like that. It's just literally metal on metal with, I guess, a film coating of oil, and that's enough to generate enough pressure to go down range. My part, as you can probably tell, is slightly a bit oversized. I've got a couple of, larger dimensions here and there. It's also slightly too long. The idea was to sneak up on the dimensions. I could measure this part and duplicate it, but then the problem is this part doesn't work all that well. So I wanted to be able to make it fit as tightly as possible in the mechanism, and then file away what I don't need. I know I'm going to need to file down this top surface here to mate the piston properly, because right now it's too high that you can't put it in the gun. I'll show you what I mean there. But this can go in here. Slides up its channel just fine. Oh yeah, forgot one thing. On this gun you put this together first. Just wriggle the two together. There we go. That goes up in there like so. And then there'll be a pin that goes through here to just put that punch in there for the moment. But the mechanism seems to want to work. It's a little snug, but that's okay. As I said, I'll be working on that. So in it goes. What I cannot do is get the piston in at the same time. As I say, there's not enough room between the little hook on the piston there. You put that in first, then this goes up inside, and I can't quite do that. Just a little too much meat there, but that's okay. I'll file it down until it makes a nice tight fit. And yeah, a couple more things I need to address. This part here has this interesting cutout at the back, which I can only assume is to go around the here. This thing, no doubt, slides down here, and somehow it needs this extra little bit of something there, I guess. Anyway, I've got plenty to remove there, so make it the same dimension. A little more work, but a little more work ahead. But we're getting close to being able to see whether this works or not. I definitely think it's going to work. Definitely, maybe, possibly. I hope so. It's an awful lot of work to put into this. If there's something wrong with the gun where this thing just wants to bind up no matter what you want to do, it's rough on the inside there. But it did, it was rough the day it came out of the factory. So, yeah, this has got to work. It looks like I did it. The part is installed. I've just put the gun together with the spring in there, the buttstock on there. The trigger parts are still not in. I could put them in, but there's really not much point at this time, but I'll explain in a moment. But the cool thing is, I have, if I can demonstrate this without smacking into anything. I have full range of motion on the cocking spring, so that should come back and cock against the trigger. Haven't proven that yet, but should do. And if that does work, then we have an air rifle that will shoot something. So a few pieces still to go in. As I said, the trigger, the sear in the trigger, the barrel seal's got to go in there as well. I think that is it, but have to take it apart again. I'm panting a little bit because it's a real pain in the butt to thread this thing together. You got to put a lot of effort into torquing it in and then tightening it down at last moment kind of thing. So I'm not looking forward to taking it apart again. But anyway, going to do that because this part, my newly minted part, has some obviously very sharp edges on it. So I'm going to take it out and just file off some of the sharpest edges and give it a good buff with some emery paper, and it should be nice and smooth. And then clean and lubricate everything, because I don't want any filings in there or what have you, but clean and lubricate everything and then put it all back together again, and then I should have a Gem air rifle to test, believe it or not. It's only taken, what, like almost a year? Oh well, anyway, we'll get there. it's all back together, and yeah, this will be the very first time I'm able to shoot it, I think, if it cocks, which I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. Not quite latching. Maybe that trigger adjustment is in a little too fine. Give it a little more bite, maybe. Okay. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm holding the buttstock firmly against me. Okay, it's together. It's cocked for the first time in how many decades? Okay, let's see if it shoots. It shoots. Yeah, it is a pretty light trigger. Okay. Well, now I guess I got to set up my chronograph and see just how fast it shoots. Okay, I think I have the chronograph set up to record. A little crunchy on the cocking, but that's to be expected with 100-year-old equipment. 179.0 feet per second. Well, between you and me, I was thinking I'd be delighted if this thing could approach 300 feet per second, but it doesn't look like it produces even 200. So, but yeah, those pellets are literally bouncing off the backing inside the backstop and rolling back out. 89.3 feet per second. Wow. Yeah, they're flying back at me. 178 on that one, so. Of course, this is the first time it's been shot in a long, long time, so it's one can expect it to bed in just a little bit here and there. 197. Oh, it's creeping right up there. Wow, we might break 200 feet per second yet. So this is pretty much BB gun velocity with these 8.2 grain pellets. This gun would never have actually seen these types of pellets when it was new. And probably mostly intended for shooting with darts. 145. Okay. Have to try it with darts. That might be the ticket, you know. .163. You know, this is actually kind of fun. Very old piece of airgun history here. I wasn't sure if I'd actually be able to shoot it again. 175, that sounded different. Well, of course, I guess because it wasn't bouncing back at me this time. Now, the question is, what are we going to do to shoot it for accuracy and whatnot now that we know its power limitations? 202. There we go. We did break 200 feet per second. Woohoo! The fact that this gun has no actual seals in it, it's just a steel piston sliding inside a steel tube. Kind of like your car pistons do. There you go, 189. There you go. Okay, 208. Awesome. Well, so while I'm here, before I take it out to the range, let's just check to see how scary light that trigger actually is. Yeah, 3.3 ounces. That's what it recorded there. Wow. Yeah, it's a little too light for my taste. I don't know that I can wind it up much firmer unless I replace the spring on it. There is a stronger spring would probably help. Might have to consider that. A little too light for easy shooting, I think. I did make a few adjustments, put a new spring in on the sear, and I also sharpened up its edge a bit. Here it's showing an average of 1 pound 14 ounces, but I was able to tighten it up a little bit more, so it's a little bit firmer now. I think it's around about 4 pounds, which is seems a lot safer. So when I took it to the range, sub-zero temperatures of course, but my first attempt was to sight it in with hobby pellets. You're shooting a little bit high, but decent windage after fiddling with the sights a little bit, so I ended up shooting a 10-shot group with these pellets, which of course I realized later that at such low velocities, around 200 feet per second with these, that's way too slow for a wad cutter, and they kind of start tearing the paper instead of cutting it, even if they do hit head on, so makes a pretty large ragged hole. See, I do know these things, I just forget them. The group size itself wasn't too bad, about 45 millimeters across, so considering I'm just standing shooting offhand, yeah, I've had guns shoot a lot worse than this, actually. I then switched over to the JSB RS pellets. These are the lighter weight ones at 7.33 grains. They're still shooting a little bit high. That one just went off camera there. But these ones make nicer holes for sure, so. The shooting is speeded up 3 times just so it doesn't take forever to watch. This group's a little bit tighter, about a centimeter tighter, so 35 millimeters across. So that's just under 1.5 inches, so not so bad. Tried it with some darts indoors, only about maybe 5 meters. I put a piece of wood behind, which didn't cover the full width of the target, so had a couple just go straight through. And some just shoot really, really high. So not great accuracy with these darts, but then again, that might have been what this gun was originally intended for. Yeah, that one just went straight through, didn't it? So this is how it looked when I first got it over a year ago. And it was very rusty with only a few traces of nickel on it here and there. But I take a fair bit of pride in being able to bring it back to this sort of condition. I did learn how to nickel plate and make the parts look pretty good again after extensive finishing and polishing. And then of course I had to make that rather intricate part to help it cock again. So it is now a working Gem air rifle or air gun from 100+ years ago. It's not the kind of thing you take out and shoot every day or all the time. It's more of a curiosity of representing an air gunning time gone by. But I do like having it in the collection. And as I said, I take a fair bit of pride in being able to get it to this condition. So it's quite an interesting piece. And not one that we come across all that often. A few years ago, I never even heard of a Gem air rifle, and now I've got 1 or 2 of them kicking around. The Gem style is often sort of dismissed as being sort of a toy or a boy's rifle, but I think they're a bit more than that. They were, of course, the earliest gun that uses barrel for cocking the spring back, which is something we're much used to these days, but they were new at that time. This one, it says manufactured in Germany, which most of them were. But yeah, there we go. All looks good. And now I have to think about the other one. Anyway, thanks for watching. Canacare will return. Consider subscribing.